Hello everybody and welcome to another episode of the Outside Insider podcast here on Philly Sports Network with myself, Liam Jenkins. You know the score by now. All things Eagles related, the last 7 days of happening, wrapped up into a bundle, gently kissed and brought out on a dinner plate served by Gordon Ramsay himself. I hope you're strapped in. We're officially under 1 week away from the NFL draft. I'm excited, you're excited. I think just about every single Philadelphia fan in existence is excited, except the ones who, I don't know, still probably long after Chip Kelly. They may not be as excited. But there's a lot to get through. Okay, there is so much to digest, whether we want to talk about targets, players teams are high and low on, whether it's going to be potential trades and moving up or moving down. There's a lot to get through. So instead of having one big show, we're going to start things off with an announcement, and that is that from now until next Wednesday, so the day before the draft, we're going to have a flurry of shows, hopefully around 4 or 5, with a different special guest on every single time, bringing their knowledge to the table. Some will specialise in certain positions, others in different areas. It's going to be a lot of fun. Some familiar faces that you know, hopefully some new guys as well, to bring some dynamic content to your ears during this very exciting phase of the NFL calendar. So this show is very much going to set up the rest of those. It's going to be almost a primer, if you will, and the last of just LJ-related draft content. From here on out, it's a joint venture with a lot of exciting guests along the way. But I've come up with what I believe to be the 3 moves the Eagles will make in the NFL draft. I'd say 3 moves, the 3 potential moves the Eagles will make at pick 25. Now, what I mean by that is what position they'll take or whether they'll move around with the pick. I've narrowed it down to 3. So the rest I don't think are an option. There will be one situation in which they trade up, one situation they trade back, and one position they will pick if they stay at 25. Before we get to that though, if you are new around here and haven't yet subscribed to this podcast, now's the chance. We are on iTunes, Spreaker, I always forget these, Stitcher, iHeartRadio, YouTube, Spotify, iTunes, Spotify, iHeartRadio, all the good ones. And then the old VCR tape of Aladdin. Someone's taped over that. You've got to watch it, you plug it in, and it's this podcast. So we're on there as well. So if you could take a couple of seconds to subscribe, it would mean the world to me. If you listen on YouTube, which I know so many of you do now, if you could hit one of those links, that would be brilliant. If not, don't worry about it. We're going to get on to what I believe to be the only scenarios concerning the Eagles in the first round. There is only one position, in my opinion. Now, don't do this meme thing where if this doesn't happen, you put the Curb Your Enthusiasm music behind it, because it's going to happen. But theoretically, from what I understand, there is one position the Eagles will take at 25, and one position only if the player they want is on the board. The position is safety, the player is Chauncey Gardner-Johnson. Why would they not go for anyway? Let's just run through it really briefly, okay? The one quote that stands out from this entire process from the last few months, dating back to the end of the season to where we are now, has been Howie Roseman's first ever real glimpse of opinion on this draft class, saying that it's historically deep on the interior defensive line, right? And the only player I can really see the Eagles outside of CGJ targeting would be an inside defensive lineman. So let's take a look at the candidates who should be there at around 25. And it's an interesting list, because I think a lot of them, after Quinn and Williams, are subject to drop. Obviously, Christian Wilkins would be the trade-up target. We'll get to that a little bit later. But Jeffrey Simmons is potentially a candidate. Jerry Tillery is a rough kind of like edge of the first round guy. After that, you're really looking at second round picks. And that's the thing. If the Eagles aren't sold on a defensive lineman, whether that be Ed Oliver, who I know a lot of fans are high on, but according to a couple of sources, one of them reported by Connor Miles, great article for himself over at the Fan Side of the Eagles page, saying that the Eagles weren't too high on him, and what they may have done was sort of a character test to see if he'll react to something. So don't be surprised if there's some dirt that comes out towards or post-draft time concerning Ed Oliver, that the Eagles have maybe tried to rile him up to see how he reacts. We saw it last year with Darius Guice. We could be seeing it. Again, this is all kind of speculative, but I have it on good opinion that the meeting didn't exactly go to plan or as well as hoped. So outside of that, as I say, I mean, there's a couple of different guys you can look at. at defensive tackle. I don't think they're going to take a linebacker at 25 because they've literally met with none of them. And as big of a smokescreen as that would be, and as many secret phone calls like a teenage girl Harry Roseman's going to have going, hey Mac Wilson, I love you, come play for Philly. I can't see that happening. I really can't. I would love the Eagles to take a linebacker in day one. Devin Bush Jr. has been my little draft crush at linebacker for quite some time now, but I don't think that's going to be the case. Again, defensive tackle, back to my original point, outside of Jeffrey Simmons, I mean, how big is that drop? Really? Because I would genuinely make the argument that after Jeffrey Simmons and Dexter Lawrence, guys like Jerry Tillery, Draymond Jones, maybe even, I hate to say it's a little bit lower, but I've got a bit of a crush on Dontavius Russell out of Auburn. There isn't that much of a drop. You're still going to get high upside players way deep into the 4th and 5th round. If you're an elite starting prospect right away, like a Christian Wilkins, like a Jeffrey Simmons, then fine, go up and get him. But do we really think that Jeffrey Simmons isn't going to be there at 20? Like, after Jeffrey Simmons, we're looking at realistically Dexter Lawrence, Jerry Tillery, Draymond Jones. Those are your next three. I think the Eagles could easily snap up any three of them in round 2. So I'm not a believer that unless they're absolutely in love with Jeffrey Simmons or trading up for Wilkins or Ed Oliver, that they're going to get defensive line pick 1. Because there is so much value later. Even Carlin Saunders, who has been one of those names that's kind of kicked around, everyone's in love with. Isaiah Buggs is another one. I know he's not quite as high upside wise. Kingsley Keke out of Texas A&M, purely for the Keke Do You Love Me memes. The Eagles don't need a starter right away. What they want is a developmental guy that can come in, learn behind Cox and Jackson. And let's be real with this here. 2017, the Eagles had Bo Allen, Destiny Vile. None of them drafted before the 7th round. Vile wasn't drafted at all. They accounted for 64% of defensive snaps. As salivating as it would be to draft a 1st round pick, to have a Jeffrey Simmons or a Christian Wilkins there, I kind of can't see it. Because you've got Jackson, you've got Cox, you're paying them a fair amount of money each. Substantial amount of money, in fact. You want talent to groom to eventually take over that throne. And that's where D. Lawrence, JT, I don't know why I'm giving them nicknames like rappers now, Draymond Jones could all come into play. So I don't think, unless they're trading out, which we'll get to later, I don't think it's defensive tackle. Outside of defensive tackle, can you really make the case for any other position at 25 without there being a big counter argument? Linebacker, they haven't met with any, so I don't think it's that. Wide receiver, there's too much value later rounds. If you want a speed guy, you've got Emmanuel Hall round 2. If you want a slot guy, Andy Isabella and Penny Hart come to mind. Running back, Josh Jacobs is great, don't get me wrong. But I think we all know Darrell Henderson is the man that everyone wants on the Eagles. Even outside of him, there are so many mid-round picks you can get. Cornerbacks, let's just not mention for now, for the sake of simplicity. Offensive line is interesting. But again, I think they're trying to get developmental talent. They still have Halapoulivaati Vaitai for now. Now, something to worth at least thinking about. If you're going into round 2, at the very least, I mean, someone like Elgton Jenkins could be available. Outside of that, into kind of round 4 territory, there are still some interesting names going to be there. Caleb McGarry is another one that springs someone who could maybe slide later on. Greg Little will certainly be around in the 4th round. Hopefully. Well, as you know, this is me saying it, so take that for what it's worth. I just can't see it. If they stay at if they're sticking at 25, the only time I can see them sticking there and taking a player is for Adderley or Chauncey Gardner-Johnson. And I think that while Adderley is the more dynamic and more complete athlete, I think CGJ best fits what the Eagles want. And I think that he'll be the perfect complement to Rodney McLeod. So that is my final prediction for what the Eagles do if they stay at 25. There'll be a mock draft out either tomorrow or Monday. Spoiler alert, the 1st round pick will be Chauncey Gardner-Johnson. Outside of that though, if CGJ is gone, which is possible, it's entirely possible. There are a couple teams beforehand which I think could very well be in play for him here. This is where things get interesting. Because I can only either see them trading up for Christian Wilkins or a defensive end. Let's not write off, because if you can get to, let's say, top 15, where you'd have to give up probably a second and a fourth, and maybe another asset to get up there. Brian Burns, Montez Sweat, either of those guys should be within that region. You're not really looking at a Rashawn Gary. He should be a top 10 pick. You can get either of those guys there. The drop is far greater at defensive end than it is at defensive tackle. Defensive tackle, I think you can get very high upside players, round 4, even round 5. Defensive end, that is a substantial knock. The minute you're sinking into round 4 and 5, I mean, Max Crosby's a name that sticks out, Jalen Jelk's another, but outside of that, you're not really looking at big time starters that at least are going to come in. And again, they're not in a position where they need that. So unless you want to come in and get a guy to immediately take over from Vinny Curry or Chris Long, while Josh Sweat presumably still develops somewhere, it's a trade up or no defensive end. I can't see them hanging around till the 3rd, the 4th, even maybe beyond that, just to pick themselves up a defensive end, because the depth just isn't there. Zach Allen, for instance, out of Boston College, should be got in the 3rd round. Maybe someone like Justin Hollins out of Oregon, but again, it's one of those things where the minute you dip out of that 1st round, the drop-off in talent is substantial. If they're going to trade up, it's defensive tackle or defensive end. If they're going to trade back, which, if I'm honest, I think is more likely than drafting a safety, as if they don't pick up Chauncey Gardner-Johnson and they stick at 25 and they're looking around, or maybe CGJ's gone, they trade back. I honestly think they do. They coop up another 3rd round pick, which they've obviously lost beforehand. Another 2nd, another 3rd round pick. The ammo the Eagles would have, let's say if they just move back a few spots, alright? And they end up picking, let's say, I mean, the Colts, for instance, are very well situated here, because they've got pick 26 and pick 34. If the Eagles dip back to pick 34 with a switch, and then they pick up a 3rd round pick, okay, you're telling me that they can't pick up Jerry Tillery with that extra pick, then pick up Darrell Henderson, and then pick up Darnell Savage, and that would not be the most complete 2nd round. I am getting a bit flustered. I mean, this is the most serious podcast I've done in a while, so very sorry if you're kind of new to super serious LJ, but that is the dream for me. Like, why would you not dip out? I mean, the Colts could be very viable trade partners if they want to move up and get their guy, but you know, because I think that if the Colts are going to move, it might have to be for Jeffrey Simmons, because they know the Eagles are in a position to take him. So if the Colts really like Jeffrey Simmons, they switch, Eagles go back, they pick up the guys they want. I can't see this going wrong. That would be my thing. Okay, so the 3 scenarios that we've got, that I've narrowed it down to after weeks of thinking, and my room sort of looking like, you know that scene in It's Always Sunny in Philadelphia, where he's in the post office and he's got all the sheets of paper over the wall? That, after going through that, it's either Chauncey Gardner-Johnson, it's trading up for a defensive end, or it's trading back and picking up a defensive tackle. But let me know what you think, guys. I need your opinions, because it's going to be a wild week. And of course, we'll get the opinions of everyone else who comes on this show over the course of the next week. There are some big names planned. We're going to have some favourite Eagles writers, some guys outside of this sort of bracket as well. So it's going to be a lot of fun. Make sure you're sticking around and hitting subscribe. We've still got a lot to get through, though, including I will give you my top 5 draft crushes. That's coming a little bit later on. 2 more features before that, though. One of them is Thank You Next. We're going to save that just a little bit for now, because we like to build the hype for Ariana Grande's entrance. That's what we do. But the Philadelphia Eagles released their 2019 schedule recently. And before we even get to that, can we just take a second to appreciate the social media teams of all 32 NFL franchises? Like, what? Hang on a minute, I've got an effect here. Give me a second. Let's just get this in for... Look at that. NFL social media teams hit it out. This is the most professional this podcast has ever sounded. So as soon as this ends, I'm looping it back just for the technical advancements, ready? So that one's for the social media. This is just for... Look at that. Look at that. You can't... We've had this before. I mean, we've got all sorts. We've got Thunder, we've got, I'll get that as a bell there. Some suspicious mute. Oh, maybe we'll have that in. If someone gives a hot take next week I don't like, just have a... Ooh, it's quite good. If you can't hear this, it's really, really weird now. But, back onto my initial point. NFL social media teams smashed the schedule release. In what should be, these are the teams we're playing. The Atlanta Falcons, I think, were second best. I think Carolina's had it better with the NFL game. And, you know, it's a tough landscape to be in right now. I genuinely believe that, I can't believe I'm having hot takes on social media teams, but there should be a power ranking for best schedule releases. And I was going to do it, and then I realised doing all 32 teams would take forever. But my top 5, probably Carolina, Atlanta. Outside of that, it's just a scrap for superiority because those two were so far ahead. The Eagles one was cool. I got the Instagram vibe, but Boyz II Men didn't know what they were doing. One of them just randomly interrupted. They're like, "Hey guys, so we're Boyz II Men," and someone goes, "Fly Eagles, fly!" and just screams it. When the other two guys are like, "Jonathan, come on, we've got to announce this." The John Dorenbos thing was cool, but it wasn't a top 10 schedule release. I think there were better ones out there. The LA Chargers was the best thing I've ever seen, almost. It was so good. They just used stock footage for everything. So they were just, for instance, it was the Rams. They just Google stock footage of a ram and have like a sheep running around. Is a ram a sheep or don't air that bit, Liam, to cut that out. It was just brilliant though. The Eagles released their schedule in a very Instagram-y way. They had Diplo on it and Lil Dicky, who had that one song and sort of like a Philly legend, but looks like a big cuddly bear. And I just want to give him a little snuggle sometimes. He's a bit cute, really, like in a very innocent-y way. But it's an interesting one because the actual schedule itself, like the strength of the schedule, mathematically, it's the 7th easiest in the NFL. Wow, the Eagles have got a top 10 easy schedule. Wow, that means so many easy... It does. That doesn't mean they still can't get dicked over, though, Susan, does it? Hey? I don't understand. Like, somehow they've got what should be on the surface an easy schedule turned into absolute chaos. They play 3 consecutive road... Okay, to put it this way, a week 10 bye is bad enough. A week 8 bye seems like forever. But I feel like wherever there is a bye week that's not slap bang in the middle, week 8 or 9, everyone kicks off about. If it's week 6, it's too early. We've got a really long second half of the season. If it's too late, oh my god, we've got a really... So you can't win, alright? But week 10, I feel it's a little bit late. And it's not just the timing of the bye week. It's the road they've got to go through to get there. So their last 4 I should say, games that we've got to examine here, before they even think of having a nice rest, putting their feet up, relaxing, looking at their, I'm sure at this point, undefeated record, 3 road games. And you can look at the opponents and say, any other situation, 1-on-1, Eagles v Vikings in Minnesota, a stadium, of course, where they won Super Bowl 52. By this point in recent memory, you'd like to think the Eagles have the upper hand, wouldn't you? The last 3 years, you'd like to think it's the Eagles who have the upper hand in this matchup. So we'll count that as a W. Then you've got the Cowboys in Jerry World. The refs are going to mess it up anyway, so probably a loss. And then you've got the Bills in Buffalo, should be a win. Oh, but it's not that simple, because you start off with the Vikings, and if by some chance the Eagles get upset, they then have to go to Texas in Jerry World to face Dak Prescott and what is becoming, I hate to say it, a little bit of a good defense. And I know that's not intimidating, a little bit of a good defense. But Christian Covington is good. We've learned that much. So is Robert Quinn. My draft crush from a couple years ago, Chidobe Awuzie, continues to haunt the Eagles, and I hate it. He just seems to pop up out of nowhere in those games and it's a conflict of interest for me, because I'm like, he's soaring and doing so well, but I also, get him off the field. You can't win. Anyway, so those 2 games are tough. That's intense matchups, mid-season. I hate to label them as must-win, but they're big games. Week 8, the Buffalo Bills, who averaged, again, I don't want to put words in the mouth here or an unnecessarily intimidating label on the Bills, but that young defense, and I think I understand why it happened as well, but they allowed a very, very impressive 179 average passing yards per game, the fewest in the NFL. Absolutely just blew everyone else out of the water in terms of defense. It was ridiculous. And I do have a funny feeling it's all because in my NFL draft cornerback consensus I released last year, ahead of the NFL draft where I ranked everyone, the biggest, I would say, whiff that I had was that Tre'Davious White wouldn't be that good. That I couldn't see why teams were in love with Tre'Davious White. And I was hammering that table so hard and I got made to look a little bit silly. So I think that's why. They're just punishing me for that. Anyway, back onto topic. That's a tough 3 games, okay? So no matter what, even if it's 3 wins, they're going to be tough games. They're tough defenses. It's hard. It's intense. It's angry. You're going to get worn down. The attrition will be high. There'll be jet lag. No other team in the NFL has a 3-game road stretch. At all. Out of 32 teams. There is a 1 in 32 chance of that happening. And the Eagles just have to be that team. But the fun doesn't end there. Before they get to the bye, having already played 3 games on the road, they then come home to face the Chicago Bears. Like, how? I don't understand. It's like getting home from a really, really bad day at work and just having your mum shouting at you because your shoes are on the floor and the laces are undone. Like, it's something, you're just like, what? Why? Why is nothing going right? I don't get it. It's really tough. And you can overlook it and say, well, the Bears are this and Trubisky ain't nothing special. I was going to say a naughty word then and I didn't. I'm very proud. Which is fair, because he isn't. But at the end of the day, that's 4 tough games. Khalil Mack is a mission to handle on his own. You can say what you want about the rest of the defense, but they've really got some big playmakers back there, especially in that secondary now. Then on offense, obviously, still Tariq Cohen. I understand it's Jordan Howard's revenge game and everything like that, but that is still a very tricky game. So you've got the Bears, the Bills, the Cowboys, and the Vikings as your 4-game run into a bye. Then you come off the bye and you face the New England Patriots and then the Seattle Seahawks. Brilliant. Like, magical. That is just, there is no break. That is a 7-week slog with a nap in between. It doesn't get much harder. That is the hardest stretch of any team in the NFL by a mile. And then I guess you've got the Week 13 holiday where everyone's going to go to Miami and enjoy the sunshine and a win because it's Miami. But it doesn't take away from the fact that you then have 4 important games to end the season. Weeks 14 to 17, or 15 to 17 I should say, are all NFC East. All divisional games. 2 against the Giants, 1 Cowboys, 1 Redskins. And they are must win, because if the Eagles drop any more than 2 to 3 of that 6-game stint, essentially, the playoffs are wide open. The division is wide open. The Eagles will win or lose this season in those last few weeks. Because that's a quarter of the year you're making up or losing straight away. If you're 3 games back to Dallas, you get 1 back. You get 2 games against the Giants, which is a sweep, let's be real here, and a game against the Redskins. That is really hard. And it all comes out, somehow, it doesn't matter about your strength of schedule if the scheduling itself is ridiculous. It's sort of like watching a cooking show, mocking someone's dish and going, I could do that. And your friend going, really? Really? Could you do that, but with Gordon Ramsay spanking your ass, calling you a twat, and then having a bazooka fired at you, and one of those air horns in your ear 24/7, with someone also putting whatever you put into the pan, flipping it off the counter or the oven? You're just not going to do as well, are you? It's very tough. And again, while the strength of the schedule is relatively light, I think the actual scheduling is what's going to come back to haunt the Eagles. We know this team isn't exactly the most durable, especially at skill positions. I think it's going to come back to haunt them. Do not be surprised. The trap games here for me are Atlanta in week 2, the Buffalo Bills, and the New York Jets. Those are the 3 which I could see them dropping when they shouldn't. And then they'll go out and they'll beat the Patriots, because if Sam Bradford can beat the Patriots with the Eagles in 2015, Sam Sleevington Bradford, my all-time kind of hill to die on quarterback, bless his little heart, can lead the Eagles to a win over the Patriots. Why can't Carson Wentz in a rematch at home? I can't see them losing that game. Same with the Seahawks. I think the Seahawks have literally decimated the Eagles in this matchup for the last eternity. But now it's at home. Things are different. I can see that being an Eagles win. Those will be the 2 games they shouldn't win, but they do. They'll then drop any number between 1 and 3 of games where they should win, but they don't, because either they don't run the ball properly, or there's Ronald Darby missing tackles, or some refs lobbing flags over nothing. It could be a number of things, but it'll be winnable games where the Eagles hurt themselves. That's the theme of the last few years. And it will all come down to those last 4 games against NFC East opponents. And it's really annoying because everyone's saying how easy the Eagles' schedule is and how easy you can get 11 to 12 wins. Fine. I get it as well. Let's just say you get 4 at the end. That's a nice start. 5 in week 1 against Washington. 6 and 7, you've got the Jets and the Dolphins. 8 if you count the Bills. Drop 1 to the Cowboys. Drop 1 to the Vikings. All of a sudden, it's not as simple as you think, especially if that run gets in the way. That Patriots and Seahawks game, for instance. It'll be interesting. I'm excited. I'm very excited for the schedule. I just think that when the opponents were announced and everyone was elated at the fact that you play the Jets and the Dolphins in the same season, as well as obviously the Giants, those should be 4 games. That's a quarter of the season in the books. And then you've got the Redskins who are dysfunctional and no one really knows what Alex Smith is doing, so that should be 6. But if you manipulate that in such a way where you still have all the disadvantages, then you're still going to be battling a current. It doesn't matter how small that current is if someone's lobbing at you at 1,000 miles an hour, because you can lob currents now, that's a thing. But I thought that was worth touching on, because all I'm seeing really is positivity regarding this Eagles schedule and saying how great it is that the Eagles have got such easy opponents. No one's really looking at the timing of it. And that will be the thing that Peterson has to really dictate. Now, there's no trip to London. That's good. That's going to help a lot. But a late bye, 3 road games, and ending with 4 back-to-back divisional games after facing the Patriots and the Seahawks and a holiday in Miami is tough. Don't underestimate it. That's all I'm saying. Do not underestimate that schedule. It looks a bit mean. But what do you think of the schedule, guys? What are your very, very early record predictions? Let me know in the comments. Or if you're not on YouTube, go to YouTube and leave a comment. If you don't want to, then don't. But we're going to go to your favourite part of the show, my favourite part of the show, where you submit your questions on Twitter, which is @LiamJenkins21, and I answer them for you. So without further ado, we're going to start with a direct message. I got a direct message, which was lovely, because, everyone's sliding into my DMs for the wrong reason. I'm joking, that never happens. Thank you. Next, Folk JD, I don't want to pronounce that wrong, my man. But listen to the Outside Insider podcast for a long time now. I recently made a Twitter specifically just to DM you. What an icon! We stand a king. Everyone go and follow @FolkJD. What a king! That's an icon. Well done, sir. He says, here's my first question. So here's his first ever question on Thank You Next. He's dreamed of this segment. Well, maybe not dreamed of it, but he's liked it for a while. This is your time in the sun. And he says, you're expected to be a silly question. It's really not. Where do you see Andy Isabella going to the draft? And do you believe the Eagles have any interest? Great shout. I think that Andy Isabella could be a 4th round selection for the Eagles. I think he is kind of moving up draft boards very slowly. 4th to 5th round is where I can see him going. I hope the Eagles have interest. I feel like if they get that late into the draft and they're wanting a receiver, it's going to be Isabella or Penny Hart, because those are the 2 guys that fit what the Eagles want to do. They're quick in open space. He's got, I think it's a 4.39 40-yard dash. He's rapid, he's small, he's concise. You don't need him in this era of the NFL to bully his way through the stem of a route. All you need him to do is get open. And if he can get open in space, in off coverage, or through screens and sweeps and the like, he will be a menace for years to come. He also says the same in David Long, which is a great question. I don't want to ruin too much of that though, because I am going to do a little bit of a segment on him later on. But thank you so much for the support. That is a little bit tear-jerking. And it just reminded, this is my first time doing this podcast, where running Philly Sports Network is my full-time job now. So thank you. I'm not going to get all soppy for the 9th week in a row about this, but it does mean a lot to me. So thank you so much. And to guys like Folker JD, who's actually just made a Twitter just to submit a question for this segment, that is the most humbling thing imaginable. So thank you so much for taking the time to listen. It is greatly, greatly appreciated. Thank you. Next, we're going to move on to the next question. The first one comes from Mike Douglas. He says, will the Eagles walk the NFC East next season? Oh, no. I don't think they'll walk it. It's a two-horse race between the Eagles and between the Dallas Cowboys. The Giants aren't doing anything, and the Redskins are still trying to work out how to do anything. So, it's between the Eagles and the Cowboys. I genuinely feel like it will be decided in Week 16. That's my honest prediction. So, they won't walk it. They're front runners for it. So are the Cowboys. I think they've got a slightly easier schedule, which of course they do because it's Jerry Jones, but it will come down to those two. Thank you. Next at Spoons_Z, also known as Ben Vega. What's your opinion on taking Travion Williams in the 4th compared to Miles Sanders in the 2nd? I love it because if you haven't guessed already, I'm a big Travion Williams stan. I think the Texas A&M running back does it all. He runs hard. He's a high character guy. I've had him mocked to the Eagles like 3 times, I think, so far out of 4 mock drafts. I think he's perfect. If they don't go for a back early, which, let's look at the bigger picture here. They don't. LaShawn McCoy was the last back they took relatively high. Outside of that, hasn't exactly been a home run track record. Let's be completely honest about it. But if they get to the 4th round and they've still not taken a running back, then I'm absolutely certain there'd be Travion Williams. At least I would take. If it's for me, Travion Williams is up there. It's him, it's Ezigbo, maybe someone like Devin Singletary. But I think Williams would complement Jordan Howard the best of those. It's either him or Ezigbo which would do so. If you're not going to get big Darrell Henderson there, if you're not going to get Darrell Henderson in the 2nd, then Travion Williams in the 4th, for me, is a nice compromise. Thank you. Next, Real D Breeze says, what is your order of biggest needs for the Eagles between safety, linebacker, defensive line, offensive line, and wide receiver? Safety first, defensive line 2nd, linebacker 3rd, O-line 4th, wide receiver 5th. The reason I haven't put linebacker higher, I will get to in a podcast, an article, and a video. Triple crown you're getting there for you gambling horse addicts. It's to do with the Eagles' personnel changes, and scheme changes, I should say. And I've been looking at a lot of what the Chargers do on defense, and how against the Ravens in the playoffs they had 7 defensive backs on the field 60% of the time, I believe was the number, which is ridiculous. And I think that's sort of the way the Eagles are going. You look at the corners and the DBs they've got on their roster right now, it certainly points towards that. So I would say linebacker, given that they've not met with a single day 1 pick, it is going to be one of their reduced needs for sure. Thank you. Next, Geordie Fighter 14. Do you think the Eagles will take Easton Stick, and where if they will? They will take him to dinner. No, I'm kidding. It's potential. It's possible. I'd like to think that the obvious chemistry in the line between Carson Wentz and Easton Stick would create a natural hierarchy. He won't be competing for a starting role. He's not going to intimidate the Lord of Carson Wentzville. He's going to come in, try and compete for a backup role, and be the developmental arm behind Nate Sudfeld. I think that would be a great pick. Oh my god, great pick. Wow, oops. Damn it. No one heard that. Everything's fine. iTunes, please don't censor this. It'd be a great pick. If not, Brett Ripien, which is where the R came in, out of Boise State. The fact he's thrown for over 13,000 yards in 50 games, has 67% accuracy. The guy is a monster. A little bit shorter, not quite as mobile, but if you want a game manager, he sort of reminds me of Nick Foles. And let's, be gentle here. That's not a bad thing, considering he won Super Bowl 52. Thank you. Next, Real D Breeze has got a 2nd. He's gone for the old 1-2 punch here. Do the Eagles stick with Howard as a solid number 1, or do they draft a running back with one of their top 3 picks? Good shout. I think Jordan Howard is still their running back 1, but that's not going to stop them taking a running back with their top 3 picks. Darrell Henderson, for me, is the top fit, without a shadow of a doubt. That would be the guy I look at. He's just a good compliment to him. It's that simple. It's a good compliment to what Jordan Howard does. Corey Clement there as well. It's going to be an interesting battle between Smallwood and Josh Adams and the other guys on the roster currently. But yeah, I think the Eagles will come out with a little bit of juice, and they'll take a running back early on. Thank you. Next, the final thank you next of today. That comes from the British and Irish Eagles. They are at British Eagles on Twitter. Great group of guys. I met them and got a bit sloppy with them in London. They're essentially an English following. English? Okay, wow. An English and Irish following for Eagles fans, but believe it or not, by the name British and Irish Eagles. But they're a great group of guys. They organise like away trips and home trips and nights out to watch the game and that sort of thing. So if you're in England like me, you're an Eagles fan and you're not following them, at British Eagles, great, nice little hive to be a part of. But they ask for the group trip, either Jets on October 6th or November 17th for the Patriots. Help us decide. Now, hang on. If I get the deciding call here, no, that's too much pressure. I don't like it. I would say the Patriots because it would be the better home game. I think going to the Jets, do you really want to watch Adam Gase and his wonky eye and Sam Darnold looking like the kid from The Incredibles? I don't know. Do I want to see Carson Wentz versus Tom Brady in person? Yes, 100%. Go to the Patriots game. The atmosphere will be far more raucous in that one than it will be against the New York Jetios. But thank you for all your questions, guys. I appreciate them as always. And again, one last special shout. We have to. Purely to @FolkJD, because he's made a Twitter just to submit a DM and ask a question. That is next level hustle. Also, while we're here, if you're still listening, we're going to have a special draft stream on Thursday night and beyond. Now, we may have to pause it at some point. We've got to work out how this is going to work, because I kind of have to report on the draft picks for Philly Sports Network as well. But we want to have a draft show where we've got all of our writers in on a live stream, analysing each pick, sinking a few beers, having pizza, talking with you guys. It's going to be fun. If you're interested in that, please let me know, because we don't want to put all the effort and time into it if two of you show up, because we want to deliver the best draft content possible. So if you would rather that than my analysis article straight after the pick, we'll go with that. If you'd rather a podcast summing everything up, or you'd rather an article straight away, we want to get your opinion. But we love the idea of having a live stream, and if you're down for that, then so are we. So again, at LiamJenkins21, where you can direct feedback. Don't forget, if you haven't left an iTunes review already, that will be really good. There's over like 40 of you now that have done that. So if you enjoy the show, 5 stars, little comment. Oh, Liam's got a high voice. And someone actually said the other day, okay, well, we're on that topic because, well, Spycast Game likes to give me jip about my voice and somehow impersonate it better than I can. Someone also said my voice was like nails on a chalkboard at times. That hurt. Wow. It's not my fault having it puberty and I'm 24. Like, give me a break. Come on. Like, I mean, we're getting high pitched now. I hope this is chalkboardy enough for you. Whoever left that comment. I'm not a big fan. What would you do, though, if I just come on this podcast one day in a few months' time and I'm like, hello, everybody, and welcome to... It would just scare the life out of you. It would scare the life out of you. So be appreciative of these seductive, very high-pitched tones which may or may not cause earthquakes over in Siberia. I can't be, I can't play God here. It happens. I'm just part of the Richter scale fashion. To close off this podcast, though, we're going to go through my top 5 draft crushes. I'm not going to get too big into each one stat-wise or anything like that, more than just kind of gush over how much I love every single one of them. But I feel it's important because you all need to stand the same play as I do, or we can never be together. We need to be on the same page, so when these guys get called out, that we follow their careers closely. It's like Kevin Hogan all over again. Kevin Hogan was my first ever draft crush, and to this day, I believe he should be the starting quarterback somewhere. It should be with the Redskins or the Broncos, let's be honest, because they both need a quarterback, and Kevin Hogan is a god. So, no real debate needed there. But we're going to go on to my 5 draft crushes this year, starting out with Jimmy Moreland out of James Madison. I mean, now that is a young, scrappy, aggressive corner. The guy is just an absolute beast. I mean, if I told you right now that a cornerback in 56 games batted down 63 passes, that's over 1 a game, right, for the mathematicians out there, intercepted 18, had 208 tackles, 7.5 for a loss, that's impressive. No matter what level, no matter what you are, that's impressive. The fact he's 5'11", 175 pounds, and he's like leaping about like a salmon out of a river is frankly ridiculous. Like, how? I've just keep saying that all night, but how? Jimmy Moreland is a different kind of cat. He's scrappy, plays with a chip on his shoulder, wants to come down and hit and prove a point, and I think that will be a very enticing cornerback to watch at the next level. Yes, there's going to be some concerns in him getting grabby. Yes, there's going to be the size concerns, which should limit him to the slot, but that's going to be one hell of a slot cornerback to whichever team takes a shot on him. Draft crush number 2, you already know, is Penny Hart out of Georgia State. The slot receiver who I've even said on this podcast, when I first got NCAA 14, my first ever or Dynasty mode, whatever it's called, was with Georgia State. And during my very short career there, Penny Hart was an absolute speed demon and was kind of like a safety blanket on every play ever. So I was automatically drawn to Penny Hart, but seeing what he's done since then, those mythical days on the PlayStation 3, the kid is a legit animal. And I think that, again, forget the size and the level of competition, he's going to be a home wrecker at the next level. He's a dynamic slot guy. I think the Eagles could be very much interested in him in the later rounds. Next up is this is the one. This is the tea that we're going to spill. Blake Cashman, linebacker. What can't Blake Cashman do? Everyone's like, oh, he's got little arms. I don't say that out loud, but they're saying he's short and he's got little arms and he can't reach and, oh, Blake. No, off the ball, I've never seen anyone move that fast. It's unreal. Blake Cashman going sideline to sideline. It's like watching like a Dementor from Harry Potter just fly around. It's just unheard of. The guy likes to come down and hit. He's productive. He's instinctive. He reads the game well. He doesn't make many mental errors. For me, in the 3rd or 4th round, if he lasts that long, Blake Cashman is a steal. And if the Eagles don't want to get a linebacker early, they do want one maybe later on. If they end up with Blake Cashman, we're going to have a podcast for an hour of just me screaming because I will be a mess. The 4th one is, of course, Travion Williams. We've spoken about this one literally about 7 minutes ago. I think that he is the most complete solution for what the Eagles want from a running back, especially now with Jordan Howard in the fray. And finally, if I've not mentioned it already, I can't tell where I started with it. I think I started with Jimmy Moreland. So, in case I'm not repeating myself here, Darrell Henderson. And it sounds simplistic, it sounds obvious, and well, that's because it is. You don't just average 8.9 yards per carry and get away with it, and get away without Liam, getting a bit flustered. It's just, you can't do it. The running back out of Memphis is just going to be one of the most explosive players in this year's draft. That's the T. You don't even need to say anything else. He's not the most prominent pass catcher, but he's going to be a dominant north-south runner. He's physical, he's got great burst, he hits the hole hard, and he's a patient runner. That's what you want behind Jordan Howard, I'm 98% sure. So Darrell Henderson in the 2nd would be the dream, but my other draft crushes, I swear if any of them, Jimmy Moreland, Penny Hart, Blake Cashman or Travion Williams end up on this team, I will cry 8 times. Twice for each. That's 4 of them. So there you are. Let me know your draft crushes though, guys. I want to know who you are getting a little bit heated over in the run up to next week's draft. And again, don't forget, if you like this content, please subscribe. We've got 4 episodes coming up next week. That's almost an episode a day. I don't even know how many days there are next. Well, there's obviously 7 days next week, but that's not the point. There's going to be a lot of episodes coming your way. So stick around, hit subscribe, leave lovely reviews if you would be so inclined. My Twitter is @LiamJenkins21. Thank you so much for taking a day out of your time. Oh, I need to sleep. For taking time out of your day to listen to this podcast. It means everything to me. I'll see you next time.